Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, Counter Spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Well, this hour we're going to have some comedy as we head to 79 Wistful Vista in the town of Wistful Vista. We're not sure where it is, but we're going to take you there, and we're going to take you to the household of Fibber McGee and Molly. This episode of Fibber McGee and Molly was originally broadcast March 25th, 1947. Fibber is upset about the high cost of electricity.
The Johnson Wax Program with Fibber McGee and Molly. The makers of Johnson's Wax products for home and industry present Fibber McGee and Molly with Bill Thompson, Gail Gordon, Arthur Q. Bryan, Gene Carroll, and me, Harlow Wilcox. The script is by Don Quinn and Phil Leslie. Music by the King's Men and Billy Mills Orchestra. The Wistful Vista Power and Light Company serves its customers well and faithfully, night and day. The Wistful Vista Power and Light Company maintains a rate schedule lower than most cities of comparative size. The employees of the Wistful Vista Power and Light Company are cheerful, courteous, and helpful. That's one side of the debate. For the negative, we have himself, of Fibber McGee and Molly.
So I went down there, and I showed them money-mad fuse boxers they couldn't pick my pocket.
Yes, but when those delivery men drove up with that truck...
I challenged their figures. Proved that I used $4.08 worth of electricity in September, I said.
And when those men started unloading again...
So you know what they did, the dirty sneaks? They showed me the meter readings. How do you like that? They don't even trust their own customers, so they put in meters to check up on them. Pretty underhanded, I call it.
Well, what did they say when you threatened to install your own home light plant?
They told me where I could go.
Heavenly days.
So I went there, and sure enough, they had those little home power plants. Yes, sir, right there in the basement of the Von Ton department store. Army surplus. And I bought one. Last one they had, too. Ought to be delivered almost any time now.
It was delivered. It's in the basement.
What? Well, my gosh, why didn't you tell me?
Well, I've been trying to for 15 minutes. But you've been so busy telling me how you overpowered the power company, you wouldn't listen.
Well, come on, let's go down in the basement and hook her up. Boy, I've got that bunch of high-tension high binders right where I like it. Come on, Snooky, let's go down.
There it is, Pet. Unwrapped, uncrated, and unwieldy.
Ain't that a beauty, though? The little Vulcan home power plant. So long, light bills. Hello, prosperity.
Well, more power to you, sweetheart.
And we'll have it, too. Now, let me see. They don't shut off our lights till 9 a.m. tomorrow, so I got plenty of time.
What was that? They're shutting off our lights tomorrow?
If they don't, I'll go down there and blast them dollar-hungry parasites right out of their big fat offices.
But, McGee, now suppose this thing doesn't work.
Doesn't work? Doesn't work? Look, maybe you didn't understand. I'm hooking this power plant up myself, personal.
Oh.
Sure. All I got to do is tie in this power plant with the house lighting system, start her going, and we'll have enough electricity to fry a cow on the waffle iron. Hand me that little piece of clothesline, will you?
Here.
Thanks.
What's that for? Do you have to whip it to get it started?
Wind the rope around the flywheel and give her a yank, like an outboard motor. Now, let me see. I better tune the motor up a little bit before I start wiring up.
Well, let me know if I can help, McGee. I'm going upstairs and see how Lena's coming along with the housework.
Oh, by the way, tell her one thing for me. Tell her that cigar butts that are over 2 inches long are not to be thrown out. She's always throwing out my...
I have just one question about that, Mr. McGee. Does that mean 2 inches including the ashes?
No, Lena, no. Knock the ashes off in an ashtray and then use your tape measure.
Okay, honey. Did you ever try smoking a pipe, Mr. McGee? I just love to see a man smoke a pipe. My brother used to smoke a marshmallow, and it turned the loveliest color.
That was a meerschaum, Lena.
Yes, that's what I say, a meerschaum.
Besides, I don't like a pipe. I've got to carry too much equipment. Tobacco pouch, pipe cleaners, reamer, 6 packs of matches, and a sewing basket.
Sewing basket?
I keep burning holes in my coat. Hey, how do you like our new home power plant, Lena? We're going to manufacture our own electricity.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. McGee.
You're sorry. Why, Lena?
Well, we've been having the handsomest meter reader coming here. And I just hate to think I'll never see Pat again.
Is that his name, Pat?
No, but he gives me a little one every time he passes. Oh, he's so good looking. He's got a little mustache and sidewinders.
Sideburns.
No, they don't burn, honey. They just tickle.
No. Sideburns, Lena.
Oh, say, can my boyfriend help you on this motor, Mr. McGee?
You mean the meter reader?
Oh, no, my boyfriend that works in the garage. He's a grease monkey. About half and half, I think.
Half and half what?
Half grease and half monkey. You know, the only clean thing about that boy is his mind, and that ought to be clean because he never uses it.
Lena, how did you meet him?
Well, I drove in there to get my brakes fixing, and when I left, he followed me all the way home.
Oh, a conquest, eh?
No. He had his necktie caught in the brake drum. Well, I'll remember about the cigar butts, Mr. McGee. Oh, ziggity-doo-dah, ziggity-dah.
Well, I got to get busy. First, I got to prime the cylinder. Squirt a little gasoline into the cylinder head like this. See? There we are. Now then, wind the rope around the flywheel. Give her a yank. Yeah.
How much electricity did that make?
I ain't hooked up yet, kiddo. I'm just trying her out. Well, here we go again. Aha, there we are. Smooth as silk. I'll show that light company where they can... Needs a little carburetor adjustment. Hey, I thought you had to go upstairs.
I have.
Well, I can handle this, Molly. Run along.
I can't.
Why not?
My skirt's wound up in the flywheel.
Oh, so that's why it stopped. Well, here, let me untangle it.
March 25th, 1947, Fibber McGee and Molly on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, more of Fibber McGee and Molly as Fibber tries to develop a home power plant. March 25th, 1947.
Think it's okay now, McGee?
Oh, sure. Just need a little adjustment. Oh, yeah. I really got a great knack for gasoline engines.
You have, huh?
I remember one day when I was just a little toddler living up on top of Kickapoo Hill back in Peoria. A 12-ton truck busted down right in front of our farm.
Shall I sit down, or is this a short one?
It's a quickie. Well, sir, the truck driver was completely baffled. He was just about to walk away when I rode up on my tricycle. I leaps off, draws my revolver.
Revolver?
I was wearing my little cowboy suit at the time. So I walks up to the guy and I says, "What's the matter, mister?" And he says, "Beat it, dirty face." So I did. Got on my tricycle and went back to where I was playing cowboy and rustlers with old man Cahoe's black cow.
What was the point?
The point is, if that truck driver hadn't been so nasty, I'd have fixed his truck for him.
What was the matter with it?
Matter with it? Gosh, how do I know? He didn't even give me a chance to look it over. But that shows you how I was with gas engines when I was only 6 years old, even.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I know all this thing needs is a little tinkering. Now, I'm one of the greatest stinkers there is. Well, here we go. Yeah, see what I mean? All it needed was just a little adjusting there.
will say it's a very well-balanced engine. It stops just as often as it starts.
Well, maybe I'm priming it too much. It's a very delicate mechanism.
Hello, Molly. Hello, McGee. Lena told me you were down here.
Hello, Dr. Gamble.
Hi, Doc. Excuse me if I don't shake hands with you, but I'm kind of greasy. With a slippery character like you, I'd be halfway up your sleeve.
That's all right, son. Handshaking is a primitive custom anyway. It's just a relay race for germs.
Careful about getting too close to this motor, Doctor. You'll get oil on that nice gray suit. New, is it?
What do you mean, new? He was wearing that sleeping bag when Churchill was smoking corn silk.
From a man who always looks like he'd been groomed by a hay baler, Lumpy. That's a very... By the way, what is this infernal machine? You gonna make your own sausage?
It's a home power plant, Doctor. Himself here had a slight glaucomora with the light company.
I'll say I did, kids. I really blasted them. When I got through talking, them guys looked like they'd got caught with their fingers 3 inches up a pay telephone. You know what I'm going to do, Doctor?
No, but I'm sure it's either illegal, impractical, or repulsive.
I'm going to make my own light and power. That's what I'm going to make, Then when I get going properly, I cut the neighbors in on it, see? For a small fee, of course.
Oh, naturally. You wouldn't want to give people anything. Undermine their character.
Show the good doctor how it works, dearie.
Okay, now watch this, Fatso. Just wind the rope around the flywheel, thus, and pull. Yeah.
There's a bad cough, hasn't it, Doctor?
Yes, but it's not serious. I can see from the exhaust that it's smoking too much.
Okay, scoff if you want to deride. But wait till you want to buy some cheap electricity from me to run that mail-order X-ray machine of yours. You'll be sorry.
Look, Steinmetz. Another one of my patients was an inventor, too. He was working on a time machine, one that would take him back to the Middle Ages. And you know something? It worked.
Heavenly days, did it really?
Indeed it did. The last time I saw him, he was the most middle-aged man I ever saw. A word to the wise, live bait. Good day.
What do you mean, inventor? I'm not inventing anything. These things have been proved successful. The Army used them all over the world.
From the looks of your face and hands, they must have used this one in Greece.
Don't worry. I'll get it started okay. Feed line's probably clogged up a little. Been shipped around so much, it's probably clogged up.
You're going to have to come down here and whale it with that rope 40 times a day?
No. That's just for now. Later on, I'll rig up a remote control switch so I can turn it on from upstairs. That's the reason.
Hey, Molly, pal, you down there?
Yes, Mr. Wilcox. Come on down.
Hi, Junior. You're just in time to take a gander at our new power plant. It's a doozer, ain't it?
What'd you say it was?
A doozer. A power plant. I got fed up with the light and power company hijacking me every month, so I told them off and bought my own plant. Last one in town. Army surplus.
Mm-hmm.
They're turning off our lights at 9 a.m. tomorrow, Mr. Wilcox. From there on, they'll just have to get along as best they can. And they probably can.
Eventually, I'm going to tap a few of the neighbors in on this thing, Junie. Sooner or later, I'll be supplying lights for the whole neighborhood. Yeah, I better get busy. I'll put this feed line back together and start it going again.
Well, you've got a nice place to work on it down here, pal. Most basements aren't as bright and clean as this one is.
Oh, Mr. Wilcox.
No, really, Molly. What I meant was you being the good housekeeper you are, you naturally keep the linoleum down here shining and beautiful with Johnson's self-polishing glow coat.
Oh, don't try to.
Because the way glow coat keeps linoleum protected against dampness and makes dust and dirt and stains so easy to wipe off, well, it's the first thing Molly would think of.
Mr. Wilcox.
Why, any housekeeper of Molly's caliber knows how lovely glow coat makes linoleum look.
Yeah.
And how it saves so much time and effort because it requires no rubbing or buffing.
Yeah, but what that got to do?
And glow coat makes linoleum last so much longer, too. And when you think of the hard wear a basement linoleum gets, well, you can readily understand.
Yeah, look, Waxy, I haven't got time to bat the fat with you now. I got trouble with the power company. I got to get this
Power company? Say, that reminds me. I've got to talk to those fellas about my bill this afternoon. $68.
$68 for electricity? Why, those burglars. You ought to get down there.
No. This is for glow coat, pal. They're big users. They asked me to stop by and pick up their check. See you later.
Well, looks like I'm about set here now, Snooky. Wait till I prime this motor again.
Here's the rope.
Thanks. Now they got the feed line cleaned out. She ought to run like a breeze.
What was that?
Just backfired a little. That shows it's about ready to go.
Through the roof?
No. Backfiring's a good sign. That indicates that the internal combustion is being equalized by the timing gear so that the thrust bearings bypass the intake. You see, my dear, the thrust...
Just a minute, dearie. Somebody's coming downstairs. Who is it?
It's just me, Mrs. McGee, Wallace Wimple. Hello, folks.
Are you all right, Mr. Wimple, after falling down those stairs?
My gosh, that was quite a nosedive you did there. Bust anything?
Oh, no. I don't mind a little tumble like that. In fact, when I consider that I did it all by myself, it's rather refreshing.
Oh, you mean you usually have help?
Yes. Sweetie Face, that's my big old wife. Sweetie Face has thrown me downstairs so often, I've learned how to fall.
Oh?
Just let myself go limp all over. Do you think that's being deceitful?
What do you mean, deceitful? You think you ought to bust a leg just to make her feel good?
Well, to be fair, Mr. McGee, Sweetie Face can be pretty sympathetic. I'll never forget the time I fell off my bicycle and she came rushing out and gathered me up in her arms.
Oh, how nice, Mr. Wimple.
What'd she say to you, Wimp?
She just put her cheek against mine and murmured, "Is Mummy's little precious all bruised?"
Oh.
And I said, "No, dear, I'm not hurt a bit." And she said, "You mean I ran out here right in the middle of people are funny on a false alarm, you nasty little fraud?" Then she threw me up on the roof of the porch.
Good gracious, on the roof of the porch.
Yes, and you know what? I found a baseball I've been looking for weeks and weeks. It just goes to show what... Well, what's that?
What's what, Wimp? Oh, this. This is a home power unit. I'm going to manufacture my own light and power. I've been getting the old whammy from the light company so long, I got my back up.
Isn't that wonderful? Does it run, Mr. McGee?
Show him, McGee. Here's the rope.
Rope? You have to pull it a little ways to get it started?
No, I used the rope to twist the flywheel with it, a high wheel. I'll show you. Better prime it again first.
Isn't this exciting? I feel just like Eddie A. Thomason.
You mean Thomas A. Edison?
No, Eddie A. Thomason. He was a neighbor of ours who built his own light plant in the basement and burned down every house in the block. I think I'll get out of here. Goodbye now.
Hey, wait a minute. I'll try her once more. What's the matter with this half-snazzled, tink-button-ram poodle thing, anyway? Or didn't I twist it fast enough that time?
Try it again, dearie.
Oh, I can't. My hands are so blistered from yanking on this rope, I couldn't pull up a ball of yarn.
Oh, dear. Well, now
I'm a patsy. I've been gypped. I've been took for a chump. $185 for this misbegotten pile of pig iron. And it ain't returnable. I ought to take it out and dump it in the reservoir. Oh, what a pigeon I've been.
Don't worry about it, Pep. Maybe you can sell it to somebody else.
Who besides me would lay out more than 60 cents for a pile of junk like that? Not a chance. If I thought there was one more fall guy like me in this town, I'd look...
Oh, my goodness, McGee, it's Mayor Latrivia.
Ixnay, hack and cray about me being such an upshay. Hi, Latrivia.
Hello, Molly. Hello, McGee. Nina said you were down here on some mysterious business, so if you'll pardon the intrusion, I'll get... Good heavens! Isn't that a little Vulcan home power plant?
It is indeed, Your Honor. Isn't it a beauty?
It really is. Where did you get it, McGee?
Basement of the Bonton, Latriv. Army surplus. Forked over 185 smackers for that. $35 down and $5 a month for 6 generations.
He got mad at the Power and Light Company, Your Honor. He decided to make his own electricity.
Had it running a minute ago, Latriv. Sweetest sounding little motor you ever listened to.
Personally, I never heard anything like it.
Yep.
And I can say that again.
Did the Bonton have any more of them, McGee?
Well, himself here said it was the last one in town, Mr. Mayor.
Why'd you ask, Latriv?
Because I've had the city engineers scouring the country for a power unit like that. We need one out at the reservoir.
That's funny. McGee was just saying that the reservoir was just the place for this one.
You mean you'd be willing to let the city buy it from you, McGee?
Oh, I should say not, boy. I went to a lot of trouble to get this thing. Fine piece of machinery. Wouldn't part with it for anything. This is the best little... Molly, you're biting your nails.
Pardon me.
Look, McGee, I appeal to you as a citizen. Would you be willing to part with this power plant? Isn't there any way we could persuade you?
Well...
Come, dearie, it's for the old hometown.
Okay, Latrivia. Okay. On that basis, I'll part with it to you.
Well, there you go. March 25th, 1947. Fibber McGee and Molly here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. The conclusion follows these messages from your favorite radio station. Just when you thought it couldn't get any better, Mike Lindell and MyPillow launching the MyPillow 2.0. Now, when Mike invented MyPillow, it had everything you could want in a pillow. Now, nearly 20 years later, he's discovered a new technology that makes MyPillow even better. Of course, the patented adjustable fill of the original MyPillow, but now with brand new fabric with a temperature-regulating thread, it's the softest, smoothest, and coolest pillow you'll ever own. Say goodbye to tossing and turning and flipping your pillow over in the middle of the night. And more great news on the MyPillow 2.0 buy one, get one free offer with my promo code Wyatt. MyPillow 2.0 is 100% made in the USA, 10-year warranty, 60-day money-back guarantee. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio podcast square to receive the MyPillow 2.0 buy one, get one free offer. Use my promo code Wyatt or call 1-800-928-4715. Thanks for tuning in to Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Now, the conclusion of Fibber McGee and Molly, March 25th, 1947, as Mayor Latrivia says...
Splendid. Thank you. $150.
Sold. Wrap it up, McGee.
Hey, wait a minute. I paid $185 for it. I'm taking a $35 loss.
Don't quibble, sweetheart. After all, it's a second-hand one now.
And $150 is all I'm empowered to offer.
Yeah,
of course, if you don't want to part with it, I suppose we could make some...
Oh, no. You can have it. You can have it. My gosh, a $35 slug is nothing when I think what the city can do with this thing. What are you doing, Latriv?
Writing you my personal check. There you are, $150. The city will reimburse me.
Better call the light company, dearie, and tell them you've made other arrangements, huh?
I will. They'll be very thankful. Hey, don't try to start this motor, Latrivia. It's brand new. It's stiff, and it needs a little...
The internal is not quite combusting the way it should.
Oh, nonsense. I've handled dozens of these things in the Coast Guard. You better stand back, Molly. I want to see how it runs.
Maybe you better wait till you get it out to the reservoir, Latrivia, because you're liable to...
Beautiful. I don't blame you for not wanting to part with it, McGee.
Hey, what did you do just before you pulled that rope, Latrivia?
What do you mean?
Why, the little gadget you twisted under the tank there.
Yeah.
What was that, Mayor?
Why, you must know what that is if you had it running. That permits the gasoline to flow from the tank into the carburetor. Otherwise, it won't run more than a few seconds.
You hear that, McGee? It was... McGee, where are you?
He went over and lay down on the coal pile.
Well, it's soft coal, and he's pretty tired.
I see. Does he always beat himself over the head with a lump of coal when he's tired?
He's never been this tired. Well, shall we go up and have a cup of tea, Your Honor?
Fibber and Molly will return in just a moment. At a friend's house recently, I sat alongside the radio, and I couldn't help noticing that it was wax-protected and gleaming. I looked around the room, and I'll bet I saw 10 other places my hostess had waxed. I wish you could have seen this room. It was such a shining example of the miracles you can work with wax. Genuine Johnson's wax. The floors had a smooth wax-polished luster. Johnson's wax on the furniture and woodwork shone with a rich, warm glow. Picture frames, ornaments, and leather goods, too. But look, the point is not how beautiful my friend's house looked with Johnson's wax, but how beautiful your house can look. The shining beauty and protection that Johnson's Wax gives is available to everyone. It costs but a few cents and takes very little time to apply. But the difference it makes in the appearance of your home is simply miraculous. Dusting is so easy, too. And the bright, sparkling luster lasts and lasts. Why not get some for your spring cleaning and polishing? Genuine Johnson's Wax, paste, liquid, or cream.
The light company said if I'd have the $4.08 in there tomorrow morning, they'd leave our current turned on.
Oh, thank goodness. I'll go down there with it myself.
Oh, no, I'll run down with it, kiddo. I want to stop in at the Bonton on the way back anyhow.
For what?
They got some automatic water pumps down there that I...
Water pumps?
Yeah, we could drill a well in the backyard, hook up a motor-driven water pump, connect up the pipes, and tell that water company to go jump in their own lake.
Oh, no, McGee, no.
No? Okay. Good night.
Good night, all.
This is Harlow Wilcox, speaking for the makers of Johnson's Wax products for home and industry, inviting you to be with us again next Tuesday night. Good night.
March 25th, 1947, Fibber McGee and Molly on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, we're going to spend a little time with Claudia and David in the soap opera Claudia. This syndicated program, sponsored by the Coca-Cola Company, was originally broadcast in 1947, 48, 49, and this episode from March 25th, 1948.
Your Coca-Cola bottler presents Claudia, based on the play and novels by Rose Franken. Brought to you, transcribed Monday through Friday, by your friendly neighbor who bottles Coca-Cola. Relax, and while you're listening, refresh yourself. Have a Coke. And now, Claudia.
Dum, 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 dum. Claudia!
I'll be there in a minute, Mama. Please sit down.
Claudia, I'm not staying. I'm going home, as you very well know.
You can't go home and leave me alone.
I have no intention of coming between you and your interior decorator. What do you think I am? Just another roll of wallpaper to be stuck up anywhere you two want?
We two don't want anything. I haven't even met my interior decorator.
I'm sure you'll get along fine, and I'd just be in the way.
Mommy, you can't go. How are you going to tell him that I don't want him?
How am I going to tell him? What makes you think I'd do such a thing?
But I don't want him.
That's your privilege, but not my responsibility. If you don't want him, and I must say I think you're rather foolish not to, just tell him.
I know, Mama, but how?
Well, I could make a few suggestions. You stand where you're standing, and I'll stand where I'm standing, and I'll be the interior decorator. And you say to me, I'm sorry,
Mr. Hillary.
Mr. Hillary, I'm sorry, but just right now, at present, I have no need for your services. And if in the future I do want you, I'll call you up. And then, as Mr. Hillary, I put on my coat and I leave.
Mommy, you can't leave now. I won't let you. And that was a dirty trick.
A dirty trick? You asked for a demonstration.
Now, be serious, Mrs. Brown. How can I tell him that we don't want an interior decorator?
I suppose there's a good reason why you can't say just that.
Don't you understand? Julia told him we did want him.
Does that make a difference?
Of course it makes a difference.
Well, I can see this is so complicated that I'm of no possible help to you. I'm going home to feed my parrot.
Oh, I wish we'd never given you that parrot. Every time you have to do something you don't want to do, you suddenly start thinking about him. He's a perfect alibi.
Well, I'm tired of being your perfect alibi. Besides, I think maybe you ought to have an interior decorator.
Now you sound more like Julia.
Because I think you ought to have somebody help you. And I know David will want you to.
You don't know David at all. He'll feel just the way I do.
And the arrival of your friend, Mr. Hillary, isn't going to delay me more than 1 minute.
Please, Mama, when you tell Mr. Hillary we don't want him, please try to be polite.
Mrs. Norton, I presume? Mrs. David Norton?
Yes, I'm Mrs. Norton. And I bet you're Mr. Hillary.
I trust your wages are always so successful, Mrs. Norton. I am he, indeed.
You're sure it isn't him?
I beg your pardon.
No, I guess you'd know, wouldn't you?
I'm not quite sure I understand.
Mr. Hillary, this is my mother, Mrs. Brown. She was just coming.
How do you do, Mrs. Brown?
How do you do, Mr. Hillary? I'm afraid my daughter's a trifle confused. She meant to say that I'm just going. But I'm glad to have had this chance to meet you. I'm taking dinner to a cranky friend. I'll see you tomorrow, dear.
Oh, it'll only take a moment, Mrs. Brown. Only a few sketches.
That appears to be rather a large folder, Mr. Hillary.
Oh, I did bring a few renderings I made for some of my other country clients. The Riddles and the Fröhlingheisens and the Pines.
I'd love to see them some other time. Goodbye, Mr. Hillary. Goodbye, Claudia.
Well, Mrs. Norton, so this is your town place.
It isn't very big, is it?
Oh, I'm sure you'll be much more comfortable in your new home in Eastbrook. On the River Road, did Mrs. Hartley Norton say?
Yes, it is.
Delightful part of the world. Did a little place up that way last year for Ethan Fröhlingheisen. 32 rooms.
32 rooms?
Oh, but some of them were quite small.
Well, I'm afraid our house isn't like that at all.
Your sister-in-law's described it to me. That's what enabled me to make the sketches.
Oh, you've made them already?
Just a hint of what I'd like to do with this place. I've been screaming to do something like this for years, but my friends insist on settling in such vast and chilly places that I haven't had the chance to try it.
You mean you know it's a little place?
My dear, I understand it's minuscule.
It's what?
Minuscule. It's tiny, compact, charming.
Oh.
Oh, indeed, yes. And I want you to look at these drawings merely as a suggestion, a hazard, a guess, a mere intuition of the final result.
Oh.
The final result will always astound you, Mrs. Norton, because once my client has given me an insight into her requirement, I am adamant.
You're what?
I forbid my ladies to enter my establishment from the day I'm engaged. The final responsibility is mine. I want no watering down of my conception, no haggling, no interference. You must trust completely, Mrs. Norton. Will you trust me?
Well, I don't know what to say. I mean, do I have to trust you now? It's getting awfully late, Mr. Hillary. Couldn't we do this some other time? My husband is...
Oh, husbands. They're the natural peril of my craft, Mrs. Norton. But I anticipate them. Every Hillary house has one husband room, indestructible, leathery, designed like an old shoe.
My husband likes old pipes better.
Hello. It's me.
David, you're home.
So are you. Isn't that nice?
So is Mr. Hillary.
Oh, is this Mr. Hillary? You might as well introduce us.
I'm Channing Hillary.
I'm David Norton.
How do you do, Mr. Norton?
How do you do?
I was just about to show Mrs. Norton several suggestions of a shadow of an idea that crossed my mind for your new home in Eastbrook.
You mean you're thinking of decorating our house?
Your sister-in-law, Mrs. Hartley Norton, suggested that I might be interested.
Oh.
Mr. Norton, and speaking quite frankly, I rose to the idea like a salmon.
Well, I didn't know that Claudia, my wife, had considered having a decorator.
My dear Mr. Norton, it's the sort of thing one really doesn't have to consider any more than one would have to consider calling the doctor in the event of pneumonia.
David, I meant to...
You don't have to apologize, Claudia. As a matter of fact, I was going to suggest it, but I didn't know how you would like the idea.
Darling, I'm sorry I didn't get a chance. I mean... It isn't my idea. David, you're a traitor. I thought you'd agree with me.
I am not a traitor. I've just been a little worried about your going out and roaming from shop to shop, picking up wallpaper and slipcovers. I don't think you ought to do things like that just now.
But, David, I like bargains.
Mr. Norton, I forbid my ladies to enter a shop. Does Heifetz allow his audience to set his tempos? Or will Helen Hayes permit prompting from the seventh row?
As a husband, I applaud you. As an architect, I envy you.
My dear Mr. Norton, it's really a question of temperament. I terrorize my clientele.
You do?
I've been known to dash rare china to the floor to silence a client's conversation.
Well, I've often wanted to do that with one of my clients' factories.
Once we've agreed on a master plan, I want nothing from the householder but money.
Well, I think this is going to work out just fine. Claudia, why don't we look at Mr. Hillary's sketches?
You mean you really want to do it this way, David?
Under the circumstances, I think it's a fine idea. What are we waiting for?
You don't want me to go around and pick up things and go shopping or anything?
Well, darling, I don't mean that you wouldn't do it beautifully. I mean with the baby and moving, I think it's a little too much for you.
You're sure you don't mean that I wouldn't do it the way you want it?
Mr. Hillary, darling, is known as one of the best decorators in New York.
My dear Mr. Norton, I've worked also in Florida, Chicago, Kentucky, and California.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Hillary. Let me amend that. He is one of the finest, if not the finest decorator in the country. But, darling, I'd rather live in a house that you decorated any time. That is, any other time.
You mean that, David?
I do, and I don't think Mr. Hillary will fail to understand that.
Rather not.
Well, I think it's going to be wonderful to have Mr. Hillary do the decorating then, because there were some things that I really didn't know what to do about.
Aha, problems. I thrive on problems.
Well, I'm thinking about the turkeys. You know, David, if we're going to raise turkeys behind the kitchen stove...
Turkeys behind the kitchen stove?
Well, we mayn't we? And I know they're going to run into the dining room and the living room. And I don't know what Mr. Hillary can do for carpets with turkeys pecking on them.
That is rather an unusual problem.
And then there's that terrible leak in the ceiling over the living room that we can't do anything about.
What leak is that?
Darling, we have to be frank with Mr. Hillary. Don't we, Mr. Hillary?
Frankness is an essential.
And then there's a cow shed right next to the dining room. I don't know what he's going to do about that. And the Victorian annex that Gerard Tucker's uncle built in 1870?
Yes, but he built it very well. It fits right in with the rest of the house.
Oh, I know, but I wonder how Mr. Hillary feels about the mixture of colonial and Victorian.
Well, the combination is somewhat less happy than tea and scones, or as you would say, scones.
No, I think I would say hot biscuits. Mr. Hillary, for the first 3 weeks we had the house, I don't think my wife even noticed it, the combination, I mean.
And then how are we going to fix up the guest room so the farmer and his wife can live there, if we can find a couple?
But we haven't found a couple yet.
Oh, I know, but we still would have to have Mr. Hillary design some kind of a compromise. How do you feel about compromises, Mr. Hillary?
I detest them.
But, really, it isn't as bad as, in fact, I don't know.
Then I do want more dogs, David, and I insist upon keeping them in the house. In the living room.
Oh, my. Poodles, I trust.
Great Danes.
When Mrs. Hartley Norton described the place to me, I don't think she quite realized.
And then we've got to have furniture that the children won't hurt, drapes that the cats can't scratch, upholstery that the dogs can sit on, rugs that the turkeys won't hurt, tables that the chickens won't hurt, chairs that the cows won't break, and what are we going to do about the room without windows?
I'm afraid there's been something of a misunderstanding.
There has?
No wonder there has. Mr. Hillary heard a picture of this place that I'm
Mr.
sure
Norton, allow me to interrupt you, sir. A little frankness at this stage of the proceedings is a very valuable commodity. Your sister-in-law has seriously misinformed me. You don't need an interior decorator. Turkeys, chickens, Great Danes, cows, children, mid-Victorians. Mrs. Norton, you don't need a decorator. What you need is an animal tamer. I bid you good afternoon.
But, Mr. Hillary...
He certainly is temperamental, isn't he?
Temperamental? After the things you said about our house. Whatever made you talk that way? I'll call him back tomorrow, and maybe we can get him to work for us.
David.
Now what?
Come here. Darling, did you mean it when you said you'd rather live in a place that I decorated?
Of course I did. But I don't want you to have all the trouble right now. You are a little minx.
Me? A minx?
I knew what you were doing. You were getting your rival decorator out of the way.
Because, David, I'm not always going to be having a baby. And just till I can really get it furnished, you wouldn't mind camping out with me on a couple of kitchen chairs and an old table?
I'd camp out with you without chairs. Even if we had to eat off the mantel.
And then we'll have so much fun decorating it ourselves later on.
Darling, if that's what you want, just bring on your mantel.
I won't have to, darling, because I know where I can get 2 marvelous kitchen chairs to start out with. And, David, they're real bargains.
Uh-oh. Do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do. Delicacies and special tidbits may be hard to come by these days, but there's one special treat that's more plentiful, and it hasn't gone up in price either. I'm referring, as you may have guessed, to Coca-Cola, which still brings you the pause that refreshes for only 5 cents. Your grocer or service station attendant will be glad to put a case in the car for you. And there are always willing hands to unload that welcome refreshment when you get home.
Hello, Mr. King.
Yes, Mrs. Brown?
Well, I guess Claudia managed to get what she wanted again without hurting anybody's feelings.
Oh, that daughter of yours seems to have a way of making things come out the way she wants them to.
I wish there was some way she could make us get rid of these cold days.
It's been a bad winter, Mrs. Brown. But I can tell you that your daughter will end it tomorrow with a little help from a man named Giuseppe. Between the two of them, spring weather will be here tomorrow.
Just in time for Easter. Well, thanks, Mr. King. I hope you'll recognize me in my new spring hat.
Oh, I'll recognize you anywhere, Mrs. Brown. Well, goodbye. And as I was about to say, every day, Monday through Friday, Claudia comes to you, transcribed, with the best wishes of your friendly neighbor who bottles Coca-Cola. So listen again tomorrow at the same time. And now this is Joe King saying au revoir. And remember, whoever you are, whatever you do, wherever you may be, when you think of refreshment, think of Coca-Cola. For ice-cold Coca-Cola makes any pause the pause that refreshes. This broadcast of Claudia was supervised and directed by William Brown Maloney. And now, here's a word from your friendly neighbor who bottles Coca-Cola.
No, I'm a Dr. Pepper guy. I don't do Coca-Cola. I don't bottle it, but I do drink it. Well, I drink Dr. Pepper, not Coca-Cola. March 25th, 1948, Claudia here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Our friend Ted at RadioMemories.com has a number of these shows. You can find them at RadioMemories.com. RadioMemories.com supplies shows on cassette, CD, or flash drive for your computer. RadioMemories.com. Thank this station, support their advertisers. It's their kindness and courtesy that allow us to be with you each and every time you roll around here on your favorite station. If you miss a day, you don't have to miss a single show. All of our shows are available at classicradio.stream. Classicradio.stream. Stream those shows on demand. Learn about building classic radio collection of your own. You can contact me, find our social media links, and if you're so inclined, you can buy me a copy. The Buy Me a Coffee money helps us acquire additional classic radio collections, and it also helps us maintain our distribution channels. That is at classicradio.stream. And as always, please thank this station, support their advertisers, and tell your friends the greatest radio shows of all time are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station.